And right, we're admitting everybody. Good morning, folks, and welcome to our shared services with Colleen Miller. We had some technical difficulties this morning with hybrid, and we're doing the switching back and forth, just like the masks off, masks on kind of thing that's going on. So thank you for being with us today, because despite all this, we continue our Arts Build mission to build a stronger community through the arts. And so that's why Colleen is here to guide us through some social media advertising and analytics that you gain from the outreach that you do through social media. So with that, I know we're running a little bit behind today, so I'm going to go ahead and let Colleen have the floor and take off. If for some reason you need to drop out of the conversation with us, feel free to catch it on our YouTube page. So Colleen, take it away, lady.
Good morning, everyone. It's really nice to have you here. Welcome to July, the end of July, almost August. If you didn't have a chance to attend my webinar last month, we talked about social media analytics. I'm going to put the link to the YouTube video right there in the chat. There's some pretty funny pre-moments of recording of my life and moving around. So ignore that and maybe start at minute 5. But either way, that's a really great webinar. And it's a topic that you all requested the last couple of months that I talk about. So that's the social media analytics one that's in the chat. And today is the other topic that was pretty highly requested in my May webinar about social media paid advertising. So if we have not met yet, my name is Colleen Miller, as Amy said. I have many years of experience serving in digital and public communication roles for officials of elected office. Not too more recently, but a couple years ago, the Chattanooga Public Works Department, many nonprofit organizations that are involved in democracy coalition building, as well as private businesses. Yeah, so I'm really happy to be here with all of you today and every month until I believe October this year to facilitate these webinars where we're going to talk about topics that you and your organizations or your businesses are interested in learning about as far as your digital presence, your social media, email marketing, website design, and other topics based on your feedback and interests, which I will surely ask about at the end of today's webinar because I'm not out of topics, but I'm very curious about what you would like to hear. And we can always, re-hit some old topics, even though those are recorded if you're interested. So let's get started. Can you all see this welcome slide? And now the title slide. Just want to make sure. I think we're good. Maybe. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about
Hey,
social.
Colleen, you're
Yeah.
actually sharing your notes as opposed to the presentation.
Oh no. Let's pause. I don't want to share my notes. Let's share my screen and this one. Now tell me, do you see?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna make it nice and big. Oh no, I went the opposite way. Hold on. New computer situation, everyone.
New computer, new setup.
I came downtown for the first time. Okay. Does that
There
look
we
right?
go. Perfect.
All right. So today we're going to talk about social media paid advertising campaigns um, and all the things around that because it can be kind of confusing. And I don't want any of you to waste your money. And I want you to do it in a very smart, effective, and efficient way. So let's dive in. Um, So let's talk about budget. One of the biggest hurdles is getting the budget all squared away for your paid advertising. Um, be honest with yourself about your budget. A little bit can go a long way. And once you have a budget to work with, it's really important to set aside maybe like a third or a fourth of the funds in case you need to adjust bid levels to maintain and be competitive in your campaign while it's happening, because you can always add money while it's happening. Or maybe you don't need to add money and you can save a little bit. So it's important to set a budget and then actually take away, I would say, a fourth of that budget and save it in case you want to, if it's doing well too, and you want to add that fourth back in to keep the momentum alive, like that's great as well. So set a budget. Um, be honest about that budget. If it's $20, that's fine. Um, but yeah, set aside a fourth of it in order to have some wiggle room during the life of an active ad campaign. Um, Other than budget, I would say that this is probably the most important part of any paid social media ad campaign, knowing the purpose of it. So, if you'd like to get results as far as more likes, more comments, or to gain more page followers, if we're talking about Facebook, or really any platform, if you'd like to get more likes and followers or comments, or you would like to run an ad campaign that converts, those readers into guests at an event, it's really important to set the purpose ahead of time for why you are doing this. It will change the way that you use, specific language on the ad. It will um, decide, how you run the ad when you're in there setting the different settings. So be honest with yourself and um, be very specific about the purpose of the ad. Gain followers, convert into attendees at an event, just increase overall reach, whatever it is. If it's all of those things, I encourage you to pick one and go with it, especially if we're talking about a smaller sort of ad budget. Um, you can't really accomplish all of these things, even with one ad, even if you have a lot of money. And if you're running an ad, be specific and pick one thing um, in order to maximize the money and maximize the outcome. So be specific about your purchase or your purpose, sorry. Okay. Also, I have said Facebook now a few times, but you can do paid advertising in multiple different places, so be, you know aware of what platform you want to run your ad on. If you are on Facebook, if you are on Instagram, if you're not on Twitter, obviously that sort of decides it for you. But just, you know every Facebook and Instagram, even though they're, owned by the same company, run by the same, they have different things that you have to do. So um, it's also very important to decide where most of your followers are and where you're going to get actual conversions for what you're looking for. So definitely Facebook is a lot easier. I'll talk about Facebook quite a bit today, especially when we talk about boosting single social media content posts instead of running a paid advertising campaign. Um, so if you're on Facebook and you're using Facebook, that's great. If you need to run Google ads, that's a whole different scenario. That's probably an entire webinar. But definitely choose your platform based on where you have the most impact and where you would like to have the most impact. So, say you just started an Instagram and you don't necessarily have followers, but that's the purpose of the campaign, then run it on Instagram and just follow sort of the very Instagram specific needs for an ad. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So this is sort of something I just talked about defining your like hitting your target audience. Where are they? But it's even more important to dive a little bit deeper into who your target audience is, and if you've not done this as an organization or a personal business or whoever you're here representing, this is really an interesting exercise to do. I have recently done this, and it feels a little strange, but ultimately it works out for the best because you start to be able to see that your consumers are not just a money flow, but they're also sort of human. So uh, I've read a lot about and like I just said, built some like what are called buyer personas or consumer personas. And if you don't know what I mean by that, this is sort of and it's a very big topic, and we could talk about this for a long time. But um, buyer personas are semi-fictional representations of a company's ideal customer. It's based on market research and real data about their existing customers. And if it sounds like I just read something, I'm going to put a link to a HubSpot article about this in the chat because it's very interesting. Oh no, where'd my chat go? Um, you basically want to think about who you're marketing to. What are they doing? How are they spending their time? Um, what are they, as far as how are they spending their time? Where are they going when they get off work? What are they looking at on social media? You really want to think about like who it is. I'm gonna put that in the chat. Sorry, that took me a second. It's important, to think about and research, and you can on Facebook see who your audience is just on your regular organic content. It's extremely worthwhile to do, um, to think about where they are, their age, gender, what are they interested in, what are their hobbies. On some platforms like on Facebook, you can actually choose to target people based on their things on Facebook that they choose to like TV shows and musicians and all the things on Facebook that you can like. So it's important to understand like your followers and the individuals that come to your events, if that's something that you do, um, and really understand who they are, where they are, what they like, what they do, so that you can really build very specific campaigns to target that group of individuals, to convert them into your followers on Facebook, and so that you don't have to keep doing paid advertising and you can just rely on your organic content to reach them, which was something we will also talk about in a little bit. Um, One of the interesting things that I've read is when you build these buyer personas is to actually like sit, and I've recently done this, sit and think and like name them. Where do they live? Do they have kids? Do they not? Are they married? Are they not? What's How do they spend their time? Like build those personas, and sort of when you start to make content, you think about that persona. Like, I want to target Amy Loudermilk because she works at Arts Build and is very involved in the community, and that's the human being that I want engaged with my social media. So when you start to think about them as actual human beings, you tend to write your content a little bit different, and for a person, which actually makes this whole digital world feel just a little bit more human. And it really does work out. It's very interesting exercise to go through. So I encourage you to read up about that. Obviously, when do you want to start it? When do you want to end it? How much are you willing to pay? be sure to define these. It's a key aspect, and obviously a button and information you have to fill out when you go to launch your social media paid social media ad campaign. Um, is it 1 week? Is it 2 weeks? Is it a month? Is it based about around an event that you're hosting that's happening in a month? Be very specific and set those targets. Um, how much is a very interesting conversation. So, paid advertising on social media, a whole campaign relies on the back end. You don't really necessarily see it, but it relies on an auction style method, and it determines what ads are going to be shown based on all the factors: your content, how much money you have, what are your set demographics for who you want to be served your ad. And you are going up against all the other organizations, maybe in Chattanooga or beyond, who are doing that sort of same advertisement on social media campaign, paid advertisement campaign on social media. So you're basically bidding against a bunch of people to get your ad served in front of a human being that fits your target characteristics, but isn't already now organically following your page. Um, so you basically, set up your thing, set up your ad, set your cost, your start and end date, and your targets, and that's your bid. And you set the amount you'd be willing to pay. The more bids you win, the more your social ad is shown to the target audience you've selected on the social network. So there's factors here that you won't necessarily be involved in making the decision about. And one key piece of that is whether or not the social media platform thinks that your content, the visual of your ad, is better than the people you're bidding up against. So we're going to talk a little bit more about content because we've had an entire webinar about content. And it's my favorite aspect of all of this, creating it. Uh, but it also really matters because just like website content, social media content, all of it, that is how you get ranked in the digital social media world, whether or not it's good. So that's really where the meat of all of this is. You could have lots of money on a paid social media advertisement, and yes, it will um, get you in front of the eyes of many more human beings. But it's also, you have to remember there's a human element. And if that ad looks any sort of way, and we're going to talk about that in just a second, like you're still delivering it to human beings who it has to capture their interests. So the content is really key. So that's the piece about an ad that we're really going to talk about here in a second. Um, but obviously, the more bids you win, the more your ad is shown to the target audience that you've already determined, and then the more your ad is shown, the better chance you have for conversions for whatever the goal is for that ad. What's really cool is some platforms, I know Facebook does do this, they show you what companies are currently paying um, for a type of ad that you want to run and for the amount of money you want to run and for the amount of the human beings you want to reach. And so it's good to be not necessarily meeting them at the top, or being at the bottom. It's kind of good to be right there in the middle. So Facebook shows you that, and that's really interesting. After you press go, that's sort of that's it. You can manage and add money or stop it at any time during your set time frame, um, depending on if you feel like it's not doing well enough, or add that fourth of the amount that I suggested you hold back into it if it's doing really well. Um, but yeah, let's talk a little bit about the content. Okay. So you really shouldn't like probably go through setting up an ad unless you've already created your content decided your start and end date, decided your money, but also decided what platform and the purpose of the ad. So these are all things you should really think about before actually going to your social media platform and like going through the motions. Except if you need to know, what size graphic you need to use or if you're going to put a video. But basically, the next step is creative properties. Um, you should always, just like content in a social media post, always use some sort of graphic, whether it's a video or a photo or an infographic of sorts. Um, there should always be a link because you are trying to drive them somewhere, so don't forget that. And the message itself, which usually is short. So let's talk about each of those pieces. If you're going to use any sort of infographic, uh, it's important to keep in mind that in this little space, we've all been served a little social media ad, whether it's in Facebook, whether it's on the right side or in the feed. There's a lot of research that says ads that have more than 20% of the graphic piece with writing on it aren't are just not served as much generally by their algorithm. So it's important to just keep writing on it at a minimum, and a photo or honestly a video works best for ads if it's appropriate. So definitely be mindful of the graphic that you use. Always a link. I have this bit.ly links starred over here on this because I talk about this probably every time, but trackable links are the most helpful thing ever. Um, I had it up on my screen, but I don't want to screw up the technical thing happening right now. But Bitly is so easy to use. You just type in bit.ly in your browser and you can open a free account, and a free account allows you to change the shortened link piece where they'll just put a random bit of numbers and letters to something a little bit more captivating as far as whatever you need it to use. So it could be like July webinar or um, this 2021 gala or whatever it is, an event, whatever it is, link to a web page specific on your website. So it could be like bit.ly slash arts build events, and you could have that just be a static bit.ly link that links right back to your web page that will always exist. And you can use these trackable links to see like how many people are clicking it, and the Facebook an ad will tell you how many people are clicking your link. But when you do a trackable link on top of that, you can go back in Bitly and see where those people are coming from. So it's an added level of metrics that helps you. It also just makes you look a little bit more branded and more put together. And like we've talked in the past about how that helps with trust with people who are working, like engaging with you on social media. So I encourage everyone to start a Bitly link profile. Even the free one is worth it. You can even go above and beyond and buy a subscription to it where you can change the bit.ly piece so it could match your website, like artsbuild dot events instead of bit.ly and then creating it. So it's worth a look. And it's definitely worth making a free account and doing it. That's just a great added metric that I would suggest all the time. Um, and the post message itself, uh, it should be short, should be concise, because it's an ad. It should be no longer than 2 sentences. It should include your hashtags that we've talked about in the past, branded hashtags. Um, but just short and sweet because it's an ad. It's an advertisement. Nothing is ever a paragraph in an advertisement. So short and sweet content there. I think the important thing to remember is your ad is supposed to generate traffic of some kind. It's supposed to bring the attention off of whatever is on the regular page and onto your ad, and move their eyes there, right? It's an ad. And it's not to necessarily spam people, even though it can feel like, paid advertising is spamming people, but you're not. Um, Something I like to say is you want your ad to be camouflaged. That's basically like you make your ad look so much like a regular bit of organic content that it isn't an ad and they're more likely to click. If you do it well, the only thing that will give it away, especially on Facebook, is the little sponsored piece up in the like little baby writing up in the corner of an ad. That's when you know you've done it really well. Is if someone clicks it and they're like, "Oh, this was an ad," um, but they didn't think about it first. Is the point. So camouflage the ads to not look like spam, to look like a regular piece of your organic content, and you'll get the most bang for your buck that way. Okay. This next slide is pretty self-explanatory. Go and set it all up and launch your campaign. Um, you also should be aware that there are approval processes no matter where you're doing social media paid advertising. Um, so it's important to be aware of. There's been questions in the past about music, there's music on a video in your ad, if that's a thing, um, and language, obviously. But you can get through the approval process, launch it, and it'll post start date and time, and then we'll move to the manage part of the ad, which I've talked about. Oh, talked about a lot. Um, so you can like obviously set it and forget it. I don't know if anyone had those growing up, but I did. You can set your campaign and forget it and walk away. That's not a great thing to do. You should probably check on it every now and then. If it's on Facebook, it will send you alerts every now and then as well. But you should really be opening up those ad campaigns, even if it's for a week, right? You should check it every day if you're running it only for a week, every couple days if it's more than that. Um, because people can comment on your posts, even if it's an advertisement and you want to always respond to comments. We talk about that a lot on my webinar. Um, so if there's comments, you definitely want to respond. If you're running like an A/B test, multiple tests or multiple versions of that ad at the same time in order to see what language works best, um, you might find that one is outperforming the other, and you might want to adjust the one that's not doing well in order to save yourself some cash, time, and effort, and move those funds that you had, set aside for one of those to the other. And you can also then, obviously, like I've said, adjust the bid price higher or lower, depending on if it's doing well or bad, or you just want to end it because you say it's an event and you've already filled all of the spaces for the event and you need no more people to sign up and pay to come or say they're coming, so you can end it. It's really important, obviously, to just keep checking in and manage the campaign. Okay. We talked about metrics last time, so this comes at no surprise that you should measure the results of the campaign, create a report, note all the steps that we've just talked about, um, in order to either do it again if it was successful or make adjustments and try it. It's always important to write down your metrics, in case you want to do similar campaigns and learn from it. Also, if you have to report to whoever gave you the money, to do it. So always, always, always measure. Okay. Really quick, I want to put these in the chat because I have an article, but there's some important social media paid advertising campaigns. Sorry, copy and paste lingo that needs to, be known if you're gonna go on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or Google and run a campaign. So this is some sort of vocab for you to read and just be aware of. When you do any sort of social media advertising, it's kind of self-explanatory as far as like moving through the steps. But these are good things to just be aware of. Um, and if you don't have the chat, it's cost per click, cost per engagement, cost per thousand, what a bid is. We've sort of talked about that, and the auction definition, which we've also talked about. Um, so we're going to move into some common mistakes that I've seen be made in social media, paid social media campaigns. So let's talk about that really quick. So the first one is not setting goals for your campaign. That's the whole sort of first thing we talked about. Yeah, SMART, if you've ever heard of this, stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. Um, I sort of just think about that as we have this event coming up, we have this much money, we want to, get new attendees to this event, or we want to bring people to our Facebook page in order to then get served a bunch of organic content that is going to get put out about this event, and just be very specific. So, something else that another sentence that a SMART goal actually, sounds like is we'll run a $100 campaign for 2 weeks in April ahead of XYZ, a bunch of events on a Facebook page, and we hope to gain 100 new followers. That may not happen, but it's important to set those goals, set the parameters, the purpose, like we talked about before. Uh, Let me see the next one. So this is something you talked about earlier about A/B testing. Um, A/B testing your social ads before you actually do it. So say you have a nice chunk of change, um, and you want to use it as, take a little bit off of it. Say you have $100 to spend, and you are trying to gain more followers to your page. I would suggest that you take 20 of those dollars, 10 and 10, and run two different ads on the A/B testing, and make them a little different. Uh, so you could do shorter captions versus a longer caption, or turn it into like bullet points. You could, you know, change the content of it. Maybe use one post that's a little bit more wordy to see if that is what your audience reacts to or doesn't. Research doesn't know everything. So, or you could do a video versus a graphic to sort of tell you what your followers or people who could be your followers are interested in. Um, adding things like emojis or a hashtag versus no hashtag. Um, yeah, the different style of graphics, the captions. There are, when you run a follower sort of paid advertisement, you can choose what the button says that people can click. So maybe changing the language on the button. But if you have a solid chunk of change, I would take 20 bucks of it and run a 10 and 10 and just test it out and see what's up. See, what actually converts for the audience that you are interested in. Obviously keep the audience the same and who you're trying to attract the same, but serve them different ads and see which one does better. So if you can do that, I'd say do that. Even if you have just 20 bucks to spend, it might be worthwhile to split 10 and 10 and try it as well, so that the next time you do it and you have this a smaller amount of money, still very effective. You'll know what type of ad they're gonna run. Also, people are different, and so they react to different things. So I have done A/B testing where A and B came out almost exactly the same, because we're all different human beings and react differently to different things. So and sometimes it's worth to just always do A/B testing. So if you haven't done it, I'm happy to talk more about that and help set people up for success as far as paid advertising and really what that looks like. Um, this is like a piece of information that is clear even beyond just paid advertisement. Um, Obviously, Instagram is different than Twitter. It's different than Facebook. It's different than a Google ad. So know your platform. Do a little bit of research before you spend any money. Make sure your graphics are what they need to be before you upload it, and it doesn't look very good when it's served to people. Um, just be very aware of what social media platform, what the availabilities are for that social media platform, and then run your ad campaign. I talked a little bit about this before, that Facebook will show you what your competition is doing. It is a competition to get your bid out there and then get your ad served in front of people. So it's an okay to call it that. But a really interesting way to do this on Facebook and Instagram is you can visit another person's page on Instagram and click the page transparency option. Under ads from this page, go to their ad library, and you can look at all their ads and see like how they're doing. So I'm gonna put the instructions to that in the chat because it's a very interesting thing to do if you are going to spend any money running paid advertisements on Facebook or Instagram. Someone sneezed, and I want to say bless you, bless you. Um, so yeah, that's a very interesting thing to do if you are going to run paid advertisements. Chattanooga has a lot of people that recently, especially myself, I'm getting served ads all the time for come to this event, come to that event, do this course in this webinar hosted by this local organization, or come and join this uh, you know, working remotely sort of office situation, whatever it is. There's a lot of people running paid advertisements right now and doing a lot of organic content. So, in order to break through the noise for your paid advertisements or even your organic content, you can do a little bit of sneaky Nancy Drew type stuff and follow those instructions and see what other people are running and what they look like too. So, and then you can look at their followers and be like, they have a lot of followers. So maybe mimic it a little bit or learn some lessons from other people, really, um, and take that back and run advertisements that work for you and that give your competition a little bit of a fight. Um, I don't know if anyone on here does LinkedIn, but I'll put the sneaky Nancy Drew things about LinkedIn on there and the Twitter on how to look at what ads people are running. Okay. Last mistake, ignoring your budget. I feel like this is a life lesson too. We all have a budget, work within it. Um, my suggestion earlier for running A/B tests, don't run too many of them. Again, people are human. They're going to react the way they are going to react. And you have honestly like 50% control over that as far as what's on social media and what they're going to click. So don't run too many A/B tests and waste money. Um, it's easy, definitely, to overspend on a paid advertisement campaign. If you're not checking it, you should check it and make sure that it's staying within budget, or you're not wasting money on an ad campaign that just isn't going anywhere or getting served to too many people for whatever reason that is. Um, so yeah, just make sure you're investing money and following your smart goals. Um, yeah, just don't go over your budget if you can't, and be honest about what your budget can do. Facebook ads are very good about that. Say you have $10 to spend, it will tell you that if you try to increase the reach, your money is just going to like it'll get too expensive for the amount of money that you've put in, so lower your reach. So pay attention to those sort of controls, cuz it's while Facebook wants your money, it is also a tool that is trying to help get your information out there. So just be aware of those things. We're going to talk really quickly about boosted posts because I think people are very curious about these. And I'm pretty sure I've seen some recent ones. Maybe Artsbuild has been doing some boosted posts. Um, So it's just like a regular Facebook post. You make your organic content, you put it out there, and maybe if it's getting a lot of good organic traffic and there's a lot of comments and this that and the other, likes, hearts, whatever, shares, it might be worth to press boost. It's also just a very different way of paid advertising that puts it kind of gets around that paid advertising hurdle, and just puts your organic content in front of your non followers in timelines. It sort of does that work of paid advertisement setting who you want to serve it to for you. Um, it's kind of a tricky little roundabout way of getting to the people that you want it to get to without having to think about who you want to get it to. Does that make sense? So yeah, it's a pretty interesting marketing tactic. It can increase the amount of people that see your content. So what it'll do is serve that specific organic post to different not people who are not following your page but definitely have similarities as far as their like demographics, what they follow on Facebook, where they live, to your actual followers. So it's a nice way if you've got like an event, I keep saying event, or a webinar, shared services webinar coming up, and you'd like to have a little bit more engagement in that webinar or event, and you'd like people to buy, for example, an arts build t-shirt to support the work. A boosted post is a great way to get that in front of people who would probably otherwise like your page but probably just don't know that it exists. So it's a great way to do that. Um, so I've talked a little bit about the benefits already, but you can reach more of the right people. We talked about that. Built-in targeting options. Again, you don't have to choose all those settings. And it's so easy. It's a little bit more easy to get approval and go through the process because if you've already created the content for just a regular organic post and you want to put $10 to boost it, it's really great because people already see the engagement on that post if there is engagement, and it's just a great way to get your information in front of people who probably would otherwise like it. I'm gonna put a little article from Hootsuite into the chat about Facebook boosted posts if you're interested in learning a little bit more. Um, but yeah, if you're curious about dipping your toes into the world of paid advertising, I think that Facebook content is a good way to start. But yeah, I'm breaking up, I'm sure. Uh, that's all I have for right now. And I would love questions, and I would love feedback on possible next topics that anyone is interested in hearing about. We can redo some. Yeah, I think people can unmute themselves if they would like to. Nobody?
Okay. Well, folks, you can always reach out to Colleen through email or contacting us at Artsfield, and we would be happy to connect you. There's Colleen's email in the chat, just colleen.m.miller@gmail.com. Like Colleen said, if you have any suggestions for social media topics that you'd like us to cover more in depth, feel free to either email Colleen or email me. My email address at ArtsBuild is amy@artsbuild.com. I just put it there in the chat. So feel free to reach out to me as well. And again, if you missed any part of today's session, you can find that on our YouTube channel here in just a little while. Or if you want to go back and revisit some of the things that Colleen covered, that's going to be available to you as well. So since we started late, looks like we're going to end a little bit early. So I'll give you back some of your time today. But Colleen, thank you for being here and for covering this topic with us, because I know it's very important to a lot of us in the arts and culture community in terms of knowing how well we're promoting ourselves. So if you would, everybody, just have a great day, and we'll catch you next time. Just stay tuned for news from us. I know the CDC just announced that those who are vaccinated need to wear masks again very shortly after we announced that we would go hybrid with our programming and welcome people back in our space. But it seems like everybody's being abundantly cautious and still doing social distancing, which is very smart. So we'll be in touch with you to let you know whether or not we're going to continue that hybrid existence into the coming months. So everybody have a great day, a great rest of your week, and thanks for joining us today.